For the past 4 years, she had been mastering the art of cutting and styling hair. She thought she had encountered every challenge her job could present, until the day she met her. She greeted her with a smile as she walked into the salon, seeing yet another unruly head of hair ready to be tamed. However, as she listened to her story, she realized she might have taken on more than she could handle. Grace began working as a hairdresser long before finishing high school. She always had a talent for making people smile through their appearance, and hairdressing allowed her to do just that. During her senior year, she started helping at her aunt's salon to earn some extra cash. When she went to college, she was certain she wanted to focus on hairdressing. She never imagined how profoundly it would shape her life. 2 years later, Grace found employment as a hairstylist in her city. Her ultimate dream was to open her salon where she could explore all that hairdressing had to offer. She'd worked for 4 years, seeing all the good and bad that came with her profession. She was confident she'd seen it all until that fateful Saturday morning. That Saturday was a busy one for Grace and her colleagues. The salon was packed with each stylist booked throughout the weekend. But as Grace was finishing up on one of her regulars, she noticed a teenage girl peeking through the windows. She paid her no mind, given many people peeped in to see what was happening inside the salon. But what the girl did made Grace set aside her comb. The girl, dressed in a pair of gray sweats and an oversized hoodie, stepped into the salon. She ran her blue eyes across the crowd, her hood over her head, and her fingers fidgeting by her sides. Grace could tell she was nervous. She set her clippers aside and faced her with a smile, but the girl turned around and stormed out of the shop. "Excuse me, Lucy," Grace apologized to her client and weaved through the busy salon into the street. "Hey," she called out. The girl was almost turning a corner. "Come back," Grace said. The girl stopped, turning around. There was apparent fear in her eyes and her lips trembled. She looked away from Grace. "Please come back," Grace repeated, her lips curling again. She needed to know if the girl was all right. "What's your name?" Grace asked when the girl walked back to her. The girl mumbled her name, and Grace shared hers. "Do you want to come in?" she asked. "We have milkshakes and great stories." Although the girl nodded and entered the shop, Grace could tell she was still uneasy. She escorted her through the many chairs, clients, and stylists. When the girl lowered her hood, Grace knew why she'd run away. "Cut it all," the girl demanded as Grace examined her hair. It was tangled and unkempt, clumped together in thick knots that hadn't felt a comb in ages. "Why do you want me to cut it?" Grace asked, already realizing she might need to clear her schedule for the rest of the day. "Because it's useless," the girl muttered. I'm useless." Her eyes welled up with tears. "Please, just cut it all off." "Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much." Grace spoke gently. "Let's take our time, okay? We'll start with a comb, working through it little by little." She offered a reassuring smile. "We'll only use the clippers if we have no other choice, all right?" The girl hesitated, studying Grace with uncertainty, then gave a small nod. "Why do you care?" she asked. What she said next shattered Grace's heart. Nobody ever cares. The girl shared her life story, explaining how her mom passed away a few months past. She'd been falling apart ever since, drowning in the darkness that was seemingly ever present in her life. There were times she felt so down, neglected, and worthless that she couldn't even brush her hair. But why did she wish to cut it? "School's around the corner," said the girl. She'd need a new photo for the semester, and she couldn't deal with the pain of combing her hair all out. Listening to her story broke Grace's heart. She cleared her entire weekend, squeezing her clients to some colleagues. She sat with the girl throughout the day, powering through hours of combing and cleaning. Could she stop her from cutting her locks? As the day ended, Grace turned the girl around in the mirror. They'd reduced what was once a mass of matted curls into a more manageable lump of tangled hair. The girl smiled her first smile of the day, but Grace knew they still had more work to do. She smiled back and asked the girl if she could return the next day. Grace rarely opened the salon on Sunday mornings, but this was a special occasion. She wasn't sure the girl would show up, but as she pushed the door open, she saw her reflection behind her. "Come in," she chirped, ushering the girl into the salon. The girl dressed differently than the previous day. She'd swapped her sweatpants and hoodie for a flowing blue dress, and her dark hair was free. Did she seem happier? Grace would find out. Grace picked up where she left with the girl's hair. She asked her what length she was comfortable with and her preferred styles. Although the girl was reluctant to talk sometimes, Grace thought she was exciting and lovely to talk to. They spent hours together. Grace found her to be delightful and was enjoying the work until she noticed a problem. While most of the huge blobs and matted portions of her hair had been fixed, there was still a lot of damage near the scalp. Grace frowned as she wondered how to proceed. They had made so much progress that Grace worried that the girl might slip back into her sadness and feel hopeless again if she mentioned it. She came up with a plan instead. Grace knew she had to buy some time to make sure she could come up with a better solution. If she stared at the girl's head for too long without working, she might get suspicious. Grace's mind raced as she tried to think of ways to prolong the situation while she could work out what to do. Her fear was that if she couldn't find a suitable fix, she'd end up having to resort to cutting after all. Grace's success in the hairstyling industry was undoubtedly due to her talent. However, what truly set her apart was the invaluable service she provided beyond just styling hair. With her older clients, Grace always felt at ease, and her extra gestures of care came naturally. But this situation was different. The girl's struggles and the heavy burden she carried made things much more delicate. Grace realized that if she could get the girl to open up a little more, she might find a way to connect with her. She genuinely wanted to help in any way she could. Since the girl had shown signs of being easily frightened before, Grace knew she had to tread carefully. Taking a deep breath, she decided to ask a few gentle questions to see where the conversation would lead. Grace was itching to learn more about her. She obviously carried around a lot on her shoulders, especially for someone so young. It pained Grace to know that the poor girl was going through so much. It was a lot to take for anyone in her position. However, Grace also had a personal reason for wanting to help her. Life hadn't been easy for Grace either. She had grown up the hard way with very little money. She'd grown up needing to help her mom pay the bills for herself and 3 siblings. Leaving school at such a young age was a difficult choice. Grace had once had dreams and ambitions, but was forced to put them aside for her family. Then things got even harder. Grace's mother had struggled through life. She faced obstacles throughout her life. When she was just 22, Grace's father abandoned her and the children. Her mom had found a way to keep the family afloat, often working 3 jobs to make ends meet. Life seemed to just be turning a corner for the family, but then tragedy struck. Grace was only 17 when her mom got sick. Losing her mom to illness at such a young age was the most difficult thing Grace had ever endured. It was many years ago, but she still felt the pain daily. Grace realized now why she had felt an instant connection to the girl. As she stared at the damaged roots of her hair, she knew she had to help her somehow. Grace changed tact at that moment. Rather than asking the girl to open up and risk her feeling uncomfortable, Grace decided to speak about her past instead. While the girl was occupied hearing about Grace's own tragic childhood, Grace used this time to figure out a solution for her hair. As she spoke, an idea soon came to her. Grace realized that the last clumps of matted hair were too small and delicate to extract without hurting the girl. However, if left that way, they could also grow out and mess up her hair again. Grace realized that if she could delicately apply a relaxer treatment to those portions, it would untangle the hair for her. It wouldn't be easy, though. Grace was well aware that relaxers contained harsh chemicals. They were never meant to come into direct contact with the scalp, so she needed to proceed with extreme caution. Gathering her tools, she carefully mixed the treatment and began applying it precisely to the affected areas. The process was tense, requiring her full concentration. As she worked, Grace kept the girl engaged in conversation, ensuring she stayed distracted while she handled the situation with the precision of a surgeon. Fortunately, her skill and experience allowed her to apply the relaxer without letting any of it touch the girl's scalp. Holding her breath, she let the treatment settle and waited, hoping for the best. At last, she saw it beginning to work. She turned the girl toward her and smiled as she told her the news. The relaxer worked a treat and had automatically unmatted the portions of her hair that would have been too tricky to do by hand. Amazingly, after the state of her hair when she first came in, it was now completely transformed from roots to tips. Grace told her the good news. Unexpectedly, the girl's eyes welled up and she began crying. Grace expected her to be happy and had no idea what was wrong. When the girl calmed down and explained, Grace was relieved they were tears of happiness, as the girl said how grateful she was. No one had ever shown her this much kindness before. Grace was ecstatic. She finished the last bit of the marathon job. Now that the girl's hair was beautiful and manageable again, all that was left was the styling. When she was done, the girl gasped with shock. Grace brought the girl a mirror. She'd trimmed the hair above the girl's shoulders, curled the ends, and added slight shades of sandy brown to complement the girl's golden bronze color. The girl ran a hand against her hair, sifting through the soft curls. Her lips curved ever so slightly, her eyes budding with tears. She looked up at Grace. "I'll actually smile for my school's picture," she said. "You made me feel like me again." In the end, Grace managed to get the girl's hair back to normal and gave her a free makeover too. Brimming with renewed confidence now, she was the star of Picture Day. After hearing Grace's story, she and the girl became close friends. Grace talked to her boss, who agreed to let the girl come to the salon after school as an apprentice stylist. After everything she had lost in life, the makeover gave her more than just a new hairstyle. It gave her a renewed sense of hope and a chance to start over. Did you enjoy this story? What do you think of Grace's behavior? Would you have acted the same way? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Kindness is free, yet it has the power to change a life. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.